كما آمن الناس قالوا أنؤمن كما آمن السفهاء ألا إنهم هم السفهاء ولكن لا يعلمون وإذا لقوا الذين آمنوا قالوا آمنا وإذا خلوا إلى شياطينهم قالوا إنا معكم إنما نحن مستهزئون الله يستهزئ بهم ويمدهم في طغيانهم يعمهون أولئك الذين اشتروا الضلالة بالهدى فما ربحت تجارتهم وما كانوا مهتدين مثلهم كمثل الذي استوقد نارا فلما أضاءت ما حوله ذهب الله بنورهم وتركهم في ظلمات لا يبصرون صم بكم عمي فهم لا يرجعون أو كصيب من السماء فيه ظلمات ورعد وبرق يجعلون أصابعهم في آذانهم من الصواعق حذر الموت والله محيط بالكافرين يكاد البرق يخطف أبصارهم كلما أضاء لهم مشوا فيه فيه وإذا أسلم عليهم قاموا ولو شاء الله لذهب بسمعهم وأبصارهم إن الله على كل شيء قدير صدق الله العظيم.
اللهم ارحمنا بالقرآن. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. So I will be reading the recitation in English from what was recited by my co-reciter here was Surah Al-Baqarah from verse 6 to verse 20. So I'll be furnishing you with the English version. Starting with verse 6. Verily, those who disbelieve, it is the same to them whether you, O Muhammad, peace be upon him, warn them or do not warn them. They will not believe. Allah has set a seal on their hearts and on their hearing. They are closed from accepting Allah's guidance, and on their eyes there is a covering. Theirs will be a great torment. And of mankind there are some hypocrites who say, we believe in Allah and the last day, while in fact they believe not. They think to deceive Allah and those who believe, while they only deceive themselves and perceive it not. In their hearts is a disease of doubt and hypocrisy, and Allah has increased their disease. The painful torment is theirs because they used to tell lies. And when it is said to them, make not mischief on earth, they say, we are only peacemakers. Verily, they are the ones who make mischief, but they perceive not. And when it is said to them, hypocrites, believe as the people, followers of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, Al-Ansar and Muhajirin, have believed. They say, shall we believe as the fools have believed? Verily, they are the fools, but they know not. And when they meet those who believe, they say, we believe, but they are alone with their shaitan, their shayateen, devils, politics, hypocrites, etc. They say, truly, we are with you. Verily, we were but mocking. Allah mocks at them and gives them increase in their wrongdoings to wander blindly. These are they who have purchased error for guidance, so their commerce was profitless and they were not guided. Their likeness is as the likeness of one who kindled a fire. Then, when it lighted all around him, Allah took away their light and left them in darkness, so they could not see. They are deaf, dumb, and blind, so they return not to the right path. Oh, like a rainstorm from the sky, wherein is darkness, thunder, and lightning. They thrust their finger in their ears to keep out the stunning thunderclap from fear of death, but Allah ever encompasses disbelievers. Allah will gather them all together. The lightning almost snatches away their sight. Whenever it flashes for them, they walk therein, and when darkness covers them, they stand still. And if Allah will, He could have taken away their hearing and their sight. Certainly, Allah has power over all things.
And inshallah, we're recognizing their presence. And to start with, we have our father, who is a member of the Lagos State Judiciary, Honorable Judge D.L. Alemioshu. Marhaban bikum. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Yeah, also allow us welcome the Judge of Lagos as well, Honorable Justice Sanda Yelwa.
From the National Industrial Court of Nigeria.
National Industrial High Court. Thank you so much for having us. We are so happy to have you here, sir.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Also, we have our the Lagos State Judiciary, also Honorable Justice Mujidat Oshodi. You are most highly welcome, ma'am. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Also, please allow us welcome Alaji Wotimi Seriki SAN for gracing us with this event today. Thank you so much, sir. We're so happy to have you here.
Marhaban bikum. Also, we have in our midst the distinguished Attorney General of Lagos State, and that is our honorable person for our father, Al-Hajj Lawal Pedro SAN. Marhaban bikum. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Also, please allow me welcome Alaji Rikullah Hassan, the former chairman of the National Hajj Commission.
Registrar of the High Court of Lagos State, and that is Al-Hajj T.A. Elias.
Thank you so much for having us.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. I think we need to start looking at the name Elias. Once you hear Elias, there is either a senior advocate, a professor of law, a judge, or a justice officer. Exactly. Alhamdulillah. And that's why Allah said, Salamun ala Ilyasin. My grandfather is Ilyas. Alhamdulillah. I'm deeply honored. Yeah, we also have our distinguished magistrates. And I will start with my father, the teacher, and that is Magistrate Jamiu Defioye. Yeah. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Also, please allow me welcome Magistrate Mikhail Adegboye. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And then we have no other person but our father, Magistrate Mikhail Kadiri. Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi. I think that's a magisterial bench.
Absolutely.
You're most welcome. Thank you very much.
Please
Well,
also allow me to welcome our very good mother, Alaja Mariam Olamiye,
the former
the former Administrator
Administrator
General of Public Trustee. Thank you so much. We're so happy to have you here.
Now, wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Now, without further ado, we shall welcome the chairman of Muslim Lawyers Association of Nigeria, Lagos State, and that is no other person but our father, Al-Hajj Adewumi Ismail Adebayo, to give his welcome address.
Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Because I'm privileged to have been informed that our distinguished chairman of the day will not be spending too much time with us because of a lot of things that came up, and he will be leaving us shortly. I will not be reading any long epistle welcome address, but just to abridge it because of time. Once again, I say Salamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I have a list of protocol which I may not be able to read, but kindly permit me for any breach that I may have in terms of protocol, but I cannot but recognize the representative of the Deputy Governor of Lagos State, who is our own, maybe it will be the one, but of the CG ball, we are still expecting. But before then, permit me, sir, under that, to recognize all our distinguished judges of the Lagos State High Court, the National Industrial Court, and all the learned silk. Let me use our Alhaji Muiz Banire, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, to also welcome all the senior advocates of Nigeria here present. And on that, I will also welcome the chairman of the occasion, our professor, Isiaq Oloyede, who has been able to make, and to all our distinguished guests, far and near, our special guests that we have been able to invite and have made it early to also enable us start this event as timely as we were able to. I most sincerely welcome you all. We appreciate you. And for all our members from the bench, from the lawyers, in and outside the bar, we appreciate the support that you have given to this program to make it come to a reality. And on that note, once again, I welcome everybody. We appreciate you for coming, and we say Jazakumullah khairan. Once again, Salamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Thank you so much, our Mulan Chairman, Lagos State. For that very kind and warm welcome address. Jazakumullah khairan. May Allah continue to reward you abundantly. He's all that concerns you.
Allahumma ameen. Just about time, just as the Mulan chairman was concluding his address, we are deeply honored and glad to have Okay, so we are going to be inviting to the front, say to the high table here, Honorable Justice Kafir Daudu, who is representing the distinguished Chief Judge of Lagos State, and that is Honorable George Kazima Logba. Marhaban bikum, ahlan wa sahlan. Also, we have in our midst our father, Honorable Justice Abdul Ghani, ahlan wa sahlan. Now, inshallah, without much ado, I think we are going to be moving on very fast to the chairman's speech. Exactly, we're going to be moving on to the chairman's speech. Yeah. And as our father rightly said, that Professor Isiaq Oloyede purposely came into the country because of this event. Just 2 days ago, I saw his picture with our father, Professor Abdul Egbewole, together at Sierra Leone for an important event. We are honored to have you, sir. And inshallah, we're going to be handing over the mic to you to have your address. And we want to implore us all to sit back, pay rapt attention, and listen attentively while the chairman of today's event, that is the registrar of the Joint Admission Matriculation Board, and also the Secretary General of the National Supreme Council for Islamic Affairs. Marhaban bik.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Wassalatu wassalamu ala ashrafil mursalin Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man tabi'ahu bi ihsani ila yawmiddin. Amin. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Ramadan Kareem to all of you. I thank you for inviting me, and I thank Allah for making it possible for me to appear here. I have 3 or 4 things, and I've picked some knowledge. I was asking him questions, interrogating him to the extent that when I was being invited, I was being diverted. Thank you, my teacher. Having said that, the second thing I need to do is to thank you. Appreciate you for inviting me. But circumstances may not make me to give a lecture, to make full remark as I want to make. And the third thing I want to do is that, like a sanitary inspector, I want to call your attention to your failure, not to your success. I know you have a long chain of successes you have recorded. But as Mulan, I expect you to champion the cause of the Muslim community in the courts through constitutional means. But I want to believe, I may be wrong, that I'm not seeing enough of that. Most of the time, Mulan is represented on the General Purpose Committee of the Nigerian Supreme Council for Islamic Affairs. And I believe you need to strengthen that representation so that some of the problems we are having, we will not be having them. When we wanted to appoint new national legal advisor, we set up a 3-man committee. All of you are senior advocates of Nigeria, headed by the current Attorney General of the Federation, Mr. Latif Fagbeni. That shows that the Muslim community entrusts a lot to you, and we expect a lot from you. But it appears to me that you do not know, you do not sufficiently appreciate the role you want to play. I will illustrate that with one case, the case of MSS in Rivers State. Look at this case. It had been on for at least, if I'm not wrong now, definitely more than 15 years. This case had been there. Just a simple case of Muslim students wanted a place to build a mosque in Rivers State, owned by the government of Rivers State. And they were given the land and they were revoked. The land was revoked and everything done. No. I remember, may God have forgotten the name, was the MD of Airtel. He was at 5 million. Between me and Professor Egbewole, we were holding the 5 million up to today because there was no land to build the mosque. It went to High Court. It was the High Court, Federal High Court in Rivers State said, yes, they have the right. The Rivers State government appealed. It went to Court of Appeal. Court of Appeal said, yes, you have the right. And yet, the Rivers State government appealed. And it had been in the Supreme Court since at least 9 years ago, until last week, when eventually justice was done, and the Supreme Court reiterated the position and dismissed the appeal of the Rivers State government. I expect that even if Mulan will not be active in the prosecution, Mulan should be active in circulating, in making this available, because you have your branches elsewhere. I'm not here to blame you. You have so many things that you are doing, but I believe this one aspect that you must do more. Now, lastly, The lecture you are giving today is very important, and you have a capable hand in Professor Mahfouz Adedimeji, the Vice Chancellor of Pan-African, I call it University of Excellence, Abuja, where is very, very qualified to give this lecture, and I don't want to dabble into it. But I'm so fascinated by how you have brought the whole thing together. You have asked us to come and discuss Sharia, and that's exactly what it is, because you are asking us to talk about preservation of life, preservation of deen, religion, preservation of peace and sovereignty of the country. All of them have been violated in Nigeria, all without any exception. Nobody can say peace has not been violated. Nobody can say life has not been violated. Nobody can say of recent, even our sovereignty is not being violated. So everything that you know has been violated. But the purpose of the Sharia itself, Constitutional Sharia, is the preservation of those things. And I think it is important for us to go and see, because Islam for life, Islam says whoever preserves one life has preserved the whole mankind. Whoever kills one is as if he had killed the whole life. And salam itself, peace, is the anchor of Islam. Are we peaceful? Among ourselves, are we peaceful? And I will illustrate that with one thing that many of you may not like. I was in Lagos last week, and a Muslim brother had a coughing problem. He was to talk and he started coughing. And I was wondering, why can't people give water? It was not during Ramadan to the person. I offered water. Somebody gave water. But I was wondering, why was the man not taking water? It was when I was wandering with my driver inside the car, and I said, something must be wrong in this Lagos. This man was almost dying, and they were giving him water, and he was not taking it. He doesn't trust those people around him. The brother, they are just saying salam alaikum. He knows that the salam alaikum is not from the heart. He would prefer to die than to take poison from them. So that tells me clearly that if we are, when my brother was reading where Quran says, when they see you, they say, Amana wa idha khala la shayatini qalu inna nahnu ma'akum wa inna nahnu yastahzi'un. Allah will yastahzi'u bihim. When Almighty Allah was saying all these things, and we are reading it, we don't internalize it. If I cannot take water from you, if I can, then why are we gathering together? We must be deceiving ourselves a lot. Salam, which salam alaikum? People know in my office, if you offend me and you say salam alaikum, I will tell you, my friend, let's settle what you have done first before I answer your salam alaikum. How do I say salam to you when I don't mean salam? I think we need to re-examine our Islam to know that we are either Muslims or non-Muslims. For me, I may be naive. I prefer to die in the hands of my brothers who will be unfair to me, who may poison me. I prefer it because I'm going to Al-Jannah straight. Because it's Almighty Allah that asked me to trust them. It is those that Allah said, be careful about. If I die in their hand, I'm on my own. But if you betray trust and I die from your hand, what's my loss? So I'm appealing to us, let us be Muslims. Most of the problems we have in Nigeria, look at the problem of Sharia in Nigeria. You, the lawyers, created it with rivalry between you and the Sharia Court of Appeal. You know the judgment you gave to say those people are not lawyers, and all of you are Muslims. And look at where we are today. If we are not careful, what remains of Sharia will be taken from all of us. And finally, we are not having Sharia Court of Appeal in southwestern part of Nigeria. Why? It's because of the quality of lawyers, Muslim lawyers we have. We have not seen you prosecute, or at least process one case from Lagos, from Oyo, from Ondo, up to Court of Appeal, up to Supreme Court, for the purpose of establishing the fact that it is unfair to the Muslims of southwestern Nigeria. I married in the southwest, unfortunately. If I had been this educated, I would have told my father-in-law not to we will not do our marriage in Elaro. We will have gone to Abuja or Kwara to do our marriage. When our Christian brothers do their marriages in church, they are protected by the High Court. Not even when there are issues, they go to High Court. But all of us, with many senior advocates of Nigeria and everything we have, you cannot devise a means that you will be able to, at least through constitutional means, establish the fact. Go to the north now. Apart from the fact that they have Sharia Court of Appeal, they also have customary Court of Appeal. So we have our customary Court of Appeal here, but where is the Sharia Court of Appeal? But I must thank Lagos. At least you have what look like it, that you talk somewhere, because you didn't want to be identified truly with Islam. But God will help us, my brothers and sisters in Islam. These are issues that I would have loved to discuss, but circumstances make this impossible for me. Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun wa salamu ala al mursalin walhamdulillah.
Can we all say takbir for our father?
Allahu Akbar.
And let's crown it by saying Jazakumullahu khairan to him.
Jazakumullahu khairan.
You know, the question we ask ourselves is, we have Professor Isaac Oloide. Then who are those that are coming up to take up his legacies? Okay.
You see, there are people who use juju, and they don't know the type of juju. When I came in, I told Muiz Banire that he's going to be the chairman. So I invite, and I counted that as well, I invite you to be the acting chairman, please. Oh yeah, you are invited. Wajadi now.
Ẹni mọ̀nà ló yẹ ká tẹ̀lé wa jáde náà, surura wa jáde náà. Once again, we say Jazakumullahu khairan to our father, and that is it, a sanitary inspector. You know, years after Professor Oloide has left University of Ilorin as the vice chancellor, you dare not walk the streets of Tanke without your ID card, because the fears is still there. So once again, we pray to Allah to preserve our father upon goodness and grant him ease in his affairs. And we also pray for our father, Dr. Muiz Banire, as he's taking our father's position. May Allah make it easy for you.
Amen.
While the chairman was giving a speech, we have in our midst also our distinguished judges from the Lagos State Judiciary. We have our mother, Honorable Judge N.O. Oju. We also have a magistrate, O.S. Balogun. Yeah. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Now.
Yeah, without further ado, please let us welcome the main course of today's event, which is the lecture by our very big Professor Mahfouz Adedimeji, the Vice Chancellor of African School of Economics, the Pan-African University of Excellence, Gudu, Abuja.
Who is going to be taking us through the topic, preserving lives, faiths, peace, and the nation's sovereignty, Islamic panacea to the Nigeria insecurity crisis. But before we have him come up,
yes, please, Professor Mahfouz, would really like you to stand up so we can read your citation. Okay. Now, Professor Mahfouz A. Adedimeji, Vice Chancellor of African School of Economics, the Pan-African University of Excellence, Abuja, is an interdisciplinary researcher, Fulbright scholar, peace practitioner, editorial consultant, and public intellectual. Educated at the University of Ilorin, where he obtained his degrees and postgraduate diploma in English and education, Professor Adedimeji received training in political science, media education, peace and development studies from such institutions as the Governor State University, Illinois, USA, Virtual Institute for Higher Education and Pedagogy in Nigeria, VIHEP, Virtual Institute of Higher Education in Africa, VIHEAF, and Cork Institute for International Peace Studies, Notre Dame University, Indiana, USA. He was also educated in Arabic and Islamic Studies at Markaz in Iwo, Osun State, and Agege, Lagos. A professor of applied English and peace linguistics. Professor Adedimeji was a member of the Governing Council of the International Peace Research Association, IPRA. He's one of the Nigeria Interreligious Council. So he's a member of the Nigeria Interreligious Council, NIREC, a member of the Governing Council of Christian University, Abeokuta, and Mercy Medical University, Iwawa, Osun State. He's also a board member of the National Hajj Commission of Nigeria, NAHCOF. Professor Adedimeji has won the conference and research grant of the Digital Business, London 2023, distinguished fellow by the International Association of Research Scholars and Administrators, IARSA 2024, and Sir Amodi Bello Saudana's Distinguished Merit Award as Epitome of Good Leadership by the National Association of Northern Nigeria. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Professor Mahfouz Adedimeji, a happily married man with children, who's going to come on this very good stage here to come and give us his thought and insight as it relates to the topic before us once again.
Preserving lives, faith, peace, and the nation's sovereignty. Islamic panacea to the Nigeria insecurity crisis. Just before our father comes up, we also have in our midst
من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فهو المهتدي ومن يضلل فلن تجد له وليا مرشدا أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. The chairman of today's occasion, our father, the deputy governor of Lagos State, I'm sorry. My lord, the chief judge of Lagos State. When I came here this morning, I remembered the scenario that unfolded on the north, Isra and Miraj, when the Prophet ﷺ ascended to the heaven, and then he met the grace of the Almighty Allah in His majesty. The situation he found himself was confounded. It wasn't morning that he was used to. It wasn't afternoon that it was used to. It wasn't night. How will he do his salutation? And then the Prophet said, At-tahiyatu lillah. All forms of greeting are for the Almighty Allah. When I saw the galaxy of personalities that are here seated, where do I start the recognitions from? Where do I begin from? Everybody is special. Everybody is distinguished. Why then would I just say, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, fathers and mothers in Islam, abuthu fikum tahiyatan islamiyatan atiratan qailan assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. That is the best form of protocol. May the peace and blessings of the Almighty Allah continue to be with you. Having said that, I want to begin by giving thanks to the Almighty Allah, the preserver of lives, the guardian of faith, the Lord of peace, as-salam, and the one in whose hands is all sovereignty, Malikul Mulk. May his peace and blessings be upon his noble messenger Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who was raised mainly to provide Islamic panacea to the crises and afflictions of this world. And may the grace of the prayer be conferred on his hallowed by his companions and the generality of his committed companions and fruitful to the mutual loss and gain. That is the day of Tagabun. It is my honor and pleasure to stand before this august audience in the month of February for this year's edition of the Ramadan lecture of Mulan, Lagos branch. I begin by appreciating the chairman of today's lecture, in absence, who incidentally is now represented by the esteemed Chief Moise Banire, SA. I know him very well because, and I've noticed somewhere in a book that we published in his honor when he was retiring from the University of Ilorin, that its relevance to our contemporary experience in Nigeria. Where insecurity has transformed into a beast, stamping with impunity on our collective humanity. The challenges of insecurity that we are facing are so daunting that as well peaceful communities are now facing constant attacks and harassments. As we speak, foreign forces with questionable motives for Muslims on our soil, and only uncertainty is certain about the ultimate ramifications of the unfolding scenarios. But what is sacrosanct is the inviolability of the words of the Almighty Allah, that وَإِنْدَهُ مَفَاتِحُ الْغَيْبِ لَا يَعْلَمُهَا إِلَّا هُوَ وَيَعْلَمُ مَا فِي الْبِرِّ وَالْبَحْرِ وَمَا تَسْقِطُ مِنْ وَرَقٍ وَلَا يَعْلَمُهَا إِلَّا يَعْلَمُهَا وَلَا حَبَّةٍ فِي ظُلُمَاتِ الْأَرْضِ وَلَا رَطْبٍ وَلَا يَابِسٍ إِلَّا فِي كِتَابٍ مُبِينٍ. Allah says, within are the keys of the unseen. There is no one who has them except the Almighty Allah. Allah knows what is on the surface of the earth, what is under the sea. And it is not possible for a leaf to fall from the parent tree except with the permission of the Almighty Allah. There is no grain within the darkness of the earth, and no moist or dry thing that is not written in a clear record. That is, everything that is still happening is a manifestation of what has been written in Lawhul Mahfuz. Nothing ever happens by happenstance. Everything that happens is a manifestation of a divine decree, divine injunction. That is my preamble. In Nigeria, insecurity has become a daily wound that quietly reshapes how people live, worship, trade, and imagine the future. In many communities in our country, you can measure insecurity not only by casual figures, but by the ordinary practices that have stopped. Farmers avoid distant fields lest they are kidnapped. Traders now travel in convoys. Parents hesitate before sending their children to school. Families in displacement camps recalibrate what home even means. Communities that once intermarried, shared markets, and exchanged greetings now view one another with suspicion. Insecurity in Nigeria is therefore not only an event, it is a living condition, a poignant atmosphere under which we are all existing. The most painful aspect of this condition, in my view, is the erosion of confidence. People begin to doubt if normalcy is possible or if justice is even achievable. Reference has been made to a case that had been in court for the past 13 years just because of a single place of worship. They begin to normalize the privilege of evil and cruelty. They begin to believe that the strong will always prevail and that survival must come before virtue. For a society as deeply religious as Nigeria, this is a spiritual crisis as much as it is a political crisis. When people feel unprotected, they sometimes retreat into sectarian shelters, and religious language is then recruited either to soothe fear or to weaponize it. And at the same time, the Nigerian state capacity to protect the citizens is increasingly being questioned, not only because violence persists. Just about 2 weeks ago, in the state of Harmony, where I spent most part of my adult life. Woro, a community that was formerly peaceful, bandits attacked the place and they slaughtered about 200 people before they vacated the community. Many communities are still being threatened in Kwara, Kogi, and Niger axis as we speak. They are asking them to pay 100 million, 150 million naira so that they will avoid attack. The thesis of this presentation, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, is that Islamic paradigms offer a potent solution to the totality of crises and afflictions that we face as humanity. This solution is not necessarily a magical cure that replaces policing, intelligence, and statecraft, but it serves as a moral and institutional medicine that is what insecurity corrodes. That is the sanctity of life, the ethics of neighborliness, the rule of law, the dignity of citizenship, the legitimacy of sovereignty. In other words, the Islamic contribution to Nigeria's security renewal must be both ethical and practical. It must preserve lives, protect faiths from distortion, restore peace as a shared good, and then strengthen the nation's sovereignty by rebuilding trust in lawful authority. I gave the etymology of the word panacea, coming from panakia, a Greek word meaning all healing, universal remedy. By making reference to panacea, we are talking of Islam being the almighty formula that solves all the problems that we have identified. So what we are talking about is that the Islamic panacea refers to the application of Islamic principles and translating them into reforms, institutions, and habits at individual, social, and communal levels. Islam does not offer Nigeria a shortcut around hard governance. What it offers is a disciplined code of conduct and a set of social instruments that can make life secure, protect people's faith, advance peace and peaceful coexistence and as well as entrench measures that will guarantee the sovereignty of the nation through making security efforts more humane, more legitimate, and ultimately more effective. In this process, everyone has a role to play, including men and women, leaders and followers, the young and the elderly. If security is everyone's business, it means that insecurity is also everyone's headache. Every one of us is involved in the business of peace building. Every one of us is involved in the business of making security a national priority. I look at the concept of security and sovereignty within the lens of Islam. I define security as the state of being protected against harm and danger. Basically, though it is often defined in state-centered terms as the protection of territorial integrity, that's when you are talking of national security, public order, and political sovereignty. That framing is important because Nigeria's sovereignty is indeed at stake when armed groups control territory, when citizens pay taxes to criminals, when roads become dead corridors, and when state monopoly on legitimate force is contested. So, the Nigerian crisis also demands the human security perspective, and that is the perspective that we consider that to be aligning with the Islamic model. The human security approach treats security as freedom from fear, freedom from want, including from chronic threats such as hunger, displacement, and collapse of livelihoods. Recent reports illustrate this overlap between armed violence and humanitarian fragility. For instance, Reuters recently reported that in late 2025, Nigeria faced record hunger driven by escalating militant violence and aid cuts, with the World Food Programme warning that nearly 35 million people could go hungry this year if conditions worsen. In early January last month, Reuters also reported an ambush in Borno State in which at least 9 soldiers were killed, reminding us that insurgent capacity remains serious in the northeast. The Associated Press similarly reported daily raids in Niger State involving mass killings and abductions, underlining the continuing volatility of the North Central and Northwest security arc. Many parts of the country, as I mentioned earlier, are facing one security threat or the other, with terrorists, bandits, kidnappers, gunmen, and all sorts of criminals holding the whole country to ransom. In this dire situation, what Islam offers is an ethical approach that aligns with human security emphasis. That is an approach that focuses on protecting individuals' interrelated threats in terms of economic security, people having jobs, food security, people not being hungry, health security, people being healthy and not being sick, environmental security, free from pollution, personal security, the ability to move from one place to the other without any harassment or attack, community and political forms of security. When the glorious Quran speaks of amno, meaning safety and assurance, it links security to gratitude, justice, and lawful livelihood. The Quran condemns fasad, meaning corruption and violent disorder on the earth, and it elevates the sanctity of life in terms that speak directly to a society traumatized by violence. Judicially, it is as if the person has killed the whole of humanity. So what this verse establishes is that human life is not an expendable commodity in political struggles, and that under no circumstance should anybody kill another person, as we do in Nigeria. The Prophet ﷺ also strengthens this premise by defining a Muslim identity in terms of safety. He said that al-Muslimu man salima hukul muslim min lisanihi wa amalihi. A true Muslim is the person whose brother is safe from the evil of his tongue as well as his deed or the harm that he would do to a person. Indeed, one of the seven mordecats, the seven destructive sins that the Prophet ﷺ highlighted, is taking life or taking a life that Allah has forbidden. These references do not merely prohibit violence or preserve lives. They demand a moral posture in which believers like you and me become sources of safety and sources of security. Sovereignty, on the other hand, is not just about border control. It is the capacity of a political community to protect life, administer justice, and sustain public goods through legitimate authority. Allah says in the glorious Quran, Inna Allaha yamurukum an tuwaddu al-amanati ila ahliha wa idha akamtum bayna an-nasi an taqumu bil adli. Justice is very essential. It was the reformer Uthman bin Fodio who said that a society can survive, can progress on the basis of unbelief. No society can develop, can progress on the basis of injustice. And we can see clear examples all over the world. Non-Muslim societies are progressing if there is justice. But even if we call ourselves Muslims, if there is no justice, we won't make any headway. That is why Allah keeps on emphasizing. Do not really want to bother this distinguished audience about. The same picture on page 5 is projected in the north central parts of Nigeria, where farmer pastoralist conflict represents a complex mixture of livelihood pressure, identity mobilization, and governance failure. In the study of Ijazi 2016, Just Lesu shows how local vigilantes and state references shape insecurity and how violence cannot be explained without attention to local issues and security practices. In the southeast, separatist agitation and contested states' responses have produced episodic violence and social anxiety, while other parts of the country, including our southwest, face urban crime, all violence and communal disputes. Nationally, human rights reporting continues to flag abuses by both state and non-state actors, and the persistence of impunity undermines public trust. What unites these diverse scenarios of insecurity? Somewhere now in Nigeria, somebody is being killed unjustly. Somewhere in Nigeria, maybe in Lagos State, a house is being burgled. Maybe gap between the rich and the poor is becoming wider and wider. The middle class is becoming emasculated totally. You have the top 1%, and then you have the remaining 99%. The top 1% has more than what the remaining 99% has. So economic insecurity and youth vulnerability. And then we have the impunity as another powerful accelerant in a situation whereby people use power to oppress. People react in different ways. And we have a situation in which if somebody is powerful, is absolutely powerful. The power is almost unquestionable. This situation deepens grievances and reduces cooperation with lawful institutions. Another cause is environmental and livelihood pressures, which interact in conflict dynamics. We also have the problem of information disorder, where we deal with misinformation and disinformation. And this is very important because this has been fueling crisis according to research. And that is why the Quranic insistence on verification. Interpret text in ways that sever them from Islamic ethical constraints. In other words, the root causes of insecurity in Nigeria can be identified as poor governance, corruption, poverty and economic vulnerability, impunity on the part of the ideological manipulation. I go to the implications of, and I will take them one after the other. When there is insecurity, the first thing it does is that it destroys human life. Anytime insecurity occurs, it is human life that is threatened when a society or a community is invaded. This sounds obvious to us until we see how easily human beings become statistics. Each death in a raid is a name, a family, a story, and a loss of future. Each kidnapping is a long corridor of hopelessness. Though the Quran tells us not to lose hope. But people that are feeling the impact of security will lose hope. And then they will have this quiet belief that Allah has abandoned them, or that evil is too strong. That is how insecurity destroys faith. The other is fanaticism. Insecurity will make people to say, if people are doing this, we are also going to react. We are also going to defend ourselves. And otherwise, peaceful people will also become violent. The two temptations are theological errors. Islamic moral worldview insists that trials are real. When crises come, a Muslim believes that it is part of the test of faith that one will be subjected to trial. So there is no need to be despondent. But there is also accountability, which is peace and social trust. And that has been illustrated. Even when Emeritus Professor Louis spoke, what will make a person not to want to take water, if not because of the fact that social trust has been violated, but internally the person is not peaceful because he doesn't trust the other person. It is the ability of people to meet one another without fear, to trade and worship without suspicion, and to disagree without violence. We just must find ways of agreeing to disagree. In a situation where violence becomes common, community retreats into adding identities and rumors become weapons. So the Quran emphasized the need for us to verify information so that we are not going to take negative actions that will eventually be counterproductive. Insecurity also destroys sovereignty. In a situation whereby criminals control our roads, where they extract informal tactics and dictate local movements, we find out that the state authority is undermined. I quickly want to move on to the Islamic panacea that Islam offers. Is not a single prescription. It is rather a layered response that operates at the level of individuals, institutions, and social practices. The first one is Iman and Amn, faith and safety. There is a link